The lawyer slid the check across the mahogany table. It made a thin, papery whisper against the polished wood, too light for something that was supposed to carry the weight of a life. Simone Sterling stared at the number. $20. For a second, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Grief had done that before. Bent light, warped sound, turned entire afternoons into fog, but the ink was sharp. Final, $20. Vanessa Sterling's laugh spilled into the room, bright and delicate, like crystal striking crystal. 20? My God, Ethan. Even in death. The conference room at Sterling and Halt was all dark wood and tall windows. Afternoon sun poured in through glass, so clean it looked invisible. The air smelled faintly of leather and something expensive she could never name. Power, maybe. Brandon Sterling leaned back in his chair, checking his watch, as if this entire proceeding were an inconvenience. "What are you supposed to do with that, Simone?" he asked mildly. "Buy diapers for 3 kids?" A few people at the far end of the table shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. Simone's fingers tightened in her lap. Under the table, 3 small pairs of dress shoes dangled from oversized chairs. Elijah, Isaiah, Gabriel, 5 years old. Sunday suits. Hair neatly brushed. They had tried so hard to be good this morning. Isaiah's hand slipped into hers beneath the table. His palm was warm, hers was ice. They had been cold since Ethan died. She squeezed gently, hoping he would not feel the tremor running through her. At the head of the table, Victoria Sterling sat perfectly straight, spine rigid, mouth pressed into the same thin line she had worn the day Ethan brought Simone home 7 years ago. A black girl from the West Side with paint on her hands and dreams too big for her bank account. Victoria had worn black to their wedding, like a funeral. "That's because he spent everything on her," Victoria said now, not looking at Simone. "My son had a future before this. He was set to take over Sterling and Halt. Stability. Legacy." The word legacy settled over the room like dust. Simone lifted her chin. "Ethan loved his life," she said. Her voice sounded smaller than she intended. "Ethan was confused," Victoria snapped, turning at last. Her eyes were pale and cold enough to burn. "And you took advantage of that. Triplets. Made sure he could never leave." The accusation hung in the air. Poisonous. "Mama?" Simone looked down. Isaiah's eyes were wet, confused. "Why is she mean to you?" The crack inside Simone widened. "She's just sad, baby," Simone whispered, smoothing his hair. "People say things they don't mean when they're sad." But Victoria Sterling was not sad. She was angry. Angry that her son had chosen love over inheritance. Angry that he had married a woman she did not approve of. Angry that his children looked like Simone. Thomas Harrison cleared his throat. He was in his 40s, tired eyes behind rectangular glasses, tie slightly crooked, as if he had adjusted it too many times already. He avoided Simone's gaze as he shuffled papers. "The will is legally binding," he said carefully. "To my beloved wife, Simone Sterling. I leave the sum of $20. The words sounded obscene. Read aloud. He slid the check the rest of the way toward her. The edge touched her fingertips. Paper against skin. It felt like nothing. 6 years of marriage. 3 sons. Late nights when Ethan came home smelling of sawdust and soap, scooping up the boys and calling them his miracles. And this was what she was worth on paper. "There must be something else," Simone said. "The house. The savings. His workshop." Thomas hesitated. That hesitation said everything. "The house was repossessed 9 months ago," he said quietly. "Your husband had been struggling financially. There are no other assets listed." The clock on the wall ticked. Tick, tick, tick. Brandon exhaled through his nose. "So we're clear. $20. 3 kids under 6. No income, no assets, no plan. He looked at her with something that almost resembled pity. What exactly are you going to do? Survive? Simone swallowed. The answer rose in her throat like fire. The same thing I have been doing since you people made it clear I was not welcome. But she did not give him that satisfaction. She folded the check once, twice, slid it into her purse beside the funeral program she still could not throw away. I'll figure it out, she said. Victoria leaned forward slightly. Those boys are Sterlings. They deserve to be raised with their heritage. I am prepared to offer them stability, a proper home, opportunities you cannot provide. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. They have a home, Simone said. For how long? Victoria's voice softened into something almost gentle. Almost. How long can you feed them? On $20 and pride. Gabriel made a small, breaking sound in the back of his throat, the kind he made when he was trying not to cry. Simone stood. We should go. She gathered her purse, smoothed Elijah's collar, lifted Gabriel into her arms. The boys clung to her like anchors. She was almost at the door when Thomas's voice stopped her. Mrs. Sterling. Wait. The room stilled. She turned slowly. Thomas was frowning at the open file, fingers hovering over a page he had not read aloud. There's something else here, he said. Brandon's posture changed. The casual boredom sharpened. What? Thomas pulled out a smaller sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges, folded carefully. Handwriting. Ethan's. Simone knew it instantly. There's a note, Thomas said, separate from the will, addressed to whoever administers the estate. Vanessa leaned forward. What does it say? Thomas did not look at her. He looked at Simone. It says, take her there. She'll understand. Silence. Not the awkward kind. The kind that comes right before something shifts. Take her where? Brandon asked, and for the first time there was something under his voice. Not mockery, nervousness. Thomas was already opening his laptop, fingers moving faster now. The clock kept ticking. Sunlight shifted across the mahogany. Simone's hands were still cold, but something inside her, something small and sharp. The silence did not break. It tightened. Thomas lowered himself slowly back into his chair, the yellowed note still in his hand. The paper trembled slightly, though his voice did not. There's a reference number attached to the check, he said, almost to himself. What's the number, Mrs. Sterling? Simone opened her purse. Her fingers brushed the folded check. The paper felt thinner now, less like an insult and more like a question. She unfolded it carefully. 2081120. Thomas froze. Brandon scoffed. It's a check number. What about it? Thomas didn't answer. He turned his laptop toward himself and began typing. Keys clicked in quick, controlled bursts. Simone watched the screen from where she stood. She didn't understand everything she was seeing. Legal databases, property registries, search bars, but she recognized urgency. 2081120. Thomas repeated under his breath. The screen refreshed. A property record appeared. Brandon leaned forward despite himself. That's impossible, he said immediately. Thomas read silently, then aloud. Residential property, 40 minutes north of the city. Purchased 3 years ago. Owner of record, Ethan Sterling. The words landed like something dropped from a height. That can't be right, Simone whispered. 3 years ago we were behind on rent. He was working 2 jobs. Victoria's face remained composed, but something flickered in her eyes. Calculation, probably a clerical error, she said coolly. Thomas shook his head slowly. It's not tied to Sterling and Halt. It's listed as a private purchase. No corporate funds attached. Brandon stood abruptly. This is absurd. If my brother owned property, the board would know. Not if he structured it independently, Thomas said. Simone felt the room shift again. 40 minutes north. 3 years. Her mind raced backward through time. 3 years ago. That was when Ethan started coming home later. Not distant, just quieter, smiling in a way that looked like he was holding something behind his teeth. She had assumed it was stress. "Show me," she said. Thomas turned the screen toward her. An image loaded slowly, satellite view first. A long gravel drive cutting through dense green. A structure set back from the road. Not a cottage. Larger. Wrapped in trees. Simone's breath caught. The front door was painted deep blue. Her favorite color. She hadn't realized she'd said that aloud until Thomas looked at her. "Did you know about this?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "I swear to God I didn't." Brandon let out a sharp laugh. "So what is this? Some secret love nest? Another debt we don't know about?" Victoria's gaze snapped toward him. "Warning." Thomas scrolled. "There's more," he said. He clicked into purchase documents. Date of acquisition. 3 years prior. The closing attorney listed. A small local firm, not one affiliated with Sterling and Halt. He opened another tab. The check number, 2081120. "Does that date mean anything to you?" he asked quietly. Simone stared at the digits. 2081120. August 11th, 2008. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. "It's the day we met," she said. The words barely came out. Riverside Community Center. Ethan walking in covered in sawdust, smiling like the world had just tilted in his favor. "I'm Ethan," he had said. "And you're beautiful." Thomas leaned back slowly. "It's not random," he said. The air in the room thickened. Victoria's composure cracked by a fraction of an inch. "What are you implying?" she asked. "I'm implying," Thomas replied, "that your son encoded something into this inheritance." Brandon scoffed again, but it sounded thinner now. "Encoded what?" Thomas glanced at the note in his hand. "Take her there. She'll understand." "Tess." Simone felt her pulse in her throat. "He wanted me to find it," she said. "Find what?" Brandon demanded. Thomas closed the laptop halfway. His movements deliberate now. "We need to go see the property," he said. "Absolutely not," Victoria snapped. "This is family business." "It is my client's business," Thomas corrected evenly. "If Ethan purchased it privately and left instructions in a separate note, it pertains to her." Brandon stepped closer to the table. "You're overstepping." Thomas met his eyes. "No, I'm doing my job." Simone became aware of her sons behind her again. The scrape of a small shoe against carpet. The soft rustle of fabric as Gabriel shifted. 40 minutes north. Deep blue door. 3 years of secrets she never saw. Ethan had hidden something. Not from her. For her. The realization slid into place quietly but firmly. Victoria stood. "This is ridiculous. Even if such a property exists, it would legally fall under review. There are processes." Thomas reopened the laptop and began printing the property summary. The printer in the corner of the room whirred to life. Paper fed through with mechanical indifference. "It's in Ethan's name," Thomas said, "which means until proven otherwise, it is part of the estate, and my client has a right to inspect it." Brandon's jaw tightened. "You're not walking into anything without us," he said. Simone turned slowly to face him. "We'll see." Her voice surprised even her. It was steady, not loud, but steady. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "You think you've uncovered something clever," she said softly. but you have no idea what you're stepping into." Simone held her gaze. "For the first time," she replied. "I think I do." Thomas gathered the printed documents. "We should leave now," he murmured, "before this becomes more complicated." Brandon's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it, then back at Simone. The casual cruelty from earlier had drained away, replaced by something sharper, alert, suspicious. As Simone ushered her boys toward the door, she felt it again, that subtle shift under the surface of the room. They had expected her to leave with $20 and humiliation. They had not expected her to leave with coordinates. Outside, the air felt different, colder, cleaner. Thomas opened the passenger door of his sedan. 40 minutes, he said. Simone looked back once at the building behind her, the tall windows, the polished stone steps, the empire Ethan had walked away from. Then she looked at her sons. "Let's go see what your father left us," she said quietly. And for the first time since the lawyer slid that check across the table, her hands did not feel quite as cold. The gravel road curved through a corridor of pine and tall grass, swallowing the sound of the city mile by mile. Thomas slowed the car as the trees thickened overhead, branches knitting together like a canopy. 40 minutes. Simone counted them without meaning to. In the back seat, the boys had fallen quiet. Elijah watched the trees flash past the window. Isaiah held his stuffed lion tight against his chest. Gabriel leaned his forehead to the glass, leaving a faint breath cloud that faded and reappeared. The GPS chimed softly. "You've arrived." Thomas turned onto a narrower drive, gravel crunching under the tires. The car rolled forward another 100 feet before the trees opened. Simone stopped breathing. It wasn't a cottage. It was an estate. Stone and warm-toned wood. 2 stories. Tall windows catching the late afternoon sun. A wide wraparound porch stretched along the front like open arms. The roofline was sharp and deliberate. Nothing accidental about it. The front door was painted deep blue. Her blue. Thomas cut the engine. Silence settled over them, broken only by the ticking of the cooling hood and distant wind through the trees. "Did you know?" he asked again, more softly this time. Simone shook her head, but something inside her felt, recognized. She stepped out of the car slowly. Gravel shifted under her shoes. The air smelled like pine sap and earth warming under sun. The boys climbed out behind her, staring. "Is this ours?" Gabriel whispered. Simone didn't answer. She walked toward the porch. A wreath hung on the door, fresh eucalyptus and lavender woven together with careful hands. The scent hit her first. Her knees weakened. "That's from our wedding," she breathed. Thomas crouched near the base of the steps, brushing aside loose stones by the door frame. He paused. "There's something here." He lifted a flat stone. Beneath it, a brass key lay tucked into the dirt, slightly tarnished, but intact. Waiting, Simone knelt, her fingers trembling as she picked it up. The metal was warm from the sun. He had touched this, hidden this, for her. Thomas stepped back. "Go ahead." Simone slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened. The smell wrapped around her immediately. Cedar, varnish, coffee, and underneath it, faint but unmistakable, the vanilla cinnamon candle she used to light when Ethan worked late. Light flooded the open interior from a wall of windows facing the trees. The space was wide and airy, beams exposed overhead, floors polished but not precious, handmade. Everywhere she looked, wood, chairs carved with careful edges, shelves fitted perfectly into corners, tables built solid and low, sturdy enough for small hands. In the far corner stood a rocking horse. Its mane was carved in such fine detail, it looked like it could ripple. Gabriel ran toward it, stopping just short. "Can I?" he asked. Simone nodded faintly. 3 small chairs were arranged around a child-sized table near the windows. Each chair had a name burned into the backrest in deliberate, careful letters. Elijah, Isaiah, Gabriel. Simone pressed her hand to her mouth. On the walls hung framed artwork. Her artwork. The charcoal sketches from college she thought she had lost during one of their early moves. The mural drafts she kept rolled under their bed. The watercolor studies she had once shown Ethan shyly, laughing off their imperfections. They were mounted, matted, lit by recessed lights. Like they mattered, like she mattered. A sound escaped her before she could stop it. A sob that had been sitting in her chest for 4 months found air. Thomas stood frozen near the doorway. "He built this," he said quietly. Simone stepped deeper into the room. Every surface carried Ethan's fingerprints. The joinery was precise, the grain chosen intentionally, small details hidden in corners, an etched heart inside a cabinet door, a tiny carved bird perched on the edge of a shelf. The boys wandered in awe. "Mama, look!" Isaiah called, pointing at a low workbench fitted perfectly to a child's height. Tiny wooden tools rested in organized rows. This wasn't a house. It was a promise. Near the back wall stood a solid wooden desk. On top of it sat a metal lockbox, brass, heavy-looking, engraved across the lid in careful script. "For my queen." Simone's breath caught. Beneath the engraving, taped to the desk, was a small handwritten note. She recognized the slant of the letters instantly. "They'll try to take this from you. Don't let them." Her knees buckled slightly. Thomas reached forward, steadying her arm. "He knew," she whispered. She moved toward the desk slowly, as if approaching something alive. The lockbox was heavier than it looked when she lifted it. She tried the latch. Locked. Thomas scanned the desk surface. "There," he said, pointing to a small envelope tucked against the back edge. Her name was written across it. Simone Sterling. She opened it carefully. Inside lay another brass key, smaller than the one from outside, and a folded note. "My queen, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for the secrets. Open the box, then fight like hell. Forever yours, Ethan." The room seemed to narrow around her. The boys' voices faded into a distant hum. Simone inserted the small key into the lockbox, turned it. The latch released with a soft metallic click. She lifted the lid. Inside were 4 objects arranged with deliberate care. A thick manila envelope sealed with red wax, a leather journal worn at the edges, a brass key labeled Riverside Trust Box 12, and a small black USB drive. On it, in silver ink, 2 words. "The truth." Simone stared at the contents. Thomas exhaled slowly. "This," he said, almost reverently, "is not just a house." No, it wasn't. It was a fortress, built quietly, hidden in plain sight, and for the first time since grief had hollowed her out, Simone felt something shift inside her. Not comfort, not relief, but armor. Outside, wind moved through the trees. Inside, in the golden light of late afternoon, Simone reached for the envelope sealed in red wax, and understood that whatever Ethan had left her, it was not $20. It was a war. The red wax seal cracked under Simone's thumb. It made a small, brittle sound in the quiet room. She slid a finger beneath the flap of the thick manila envelope and pulled out a stack of documents, heavier than she expected. The papers smelled faintly of ink and something metallic, like it had lived in a filing cabinet for a long time. Thomas stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "Let's take this one piece at a time," he said. The first page was stamped in bold blue ink. "Patent Transfer Agreement." Simone blinked. Below the title were columns of numbers and legal language dense enough to blur. But the compensation line stood out clearly, $340,000. Thomas took the page gently, scanning quickly. There are multiple filings, he murmured. Different companies, different dates. He flipped to the next. Another patent, another transfer. 6 figures. Then another. The stack thickened in his hands. These are legitimate, he said, almost under his breath. Registered federally, assigned privately. Simone's mind struggled to keep up. He never told me, she whispered. Thomas turned a few more pages and then stopped. Here, he said. He handed her a document printed on heavier stock paper. At the top, in bold serif letters, the Simone Sterling Irrevocable Trust. Her vision swam for a second. She forced herself to read. Established 4 years ago. Beneficiaries listed clearly. Simone Sterling and her 3 minor children. Current valuation line near the bottom. $1,847,652.38. The paper slipped slightly in her grasp. Thomas caught the edge before it hit the floor. It's structured properly, he said. Irrevocable. Protected from creditors. Protected from estate challenges. Even from family disputes. They can't touch it? She asked. Not easily, he replied. Not without proving fraud or incapacity. And this is clean. Simone sank into the desk chair slowly. 4 years. He had been building this for 4 years, quietly, carefully, while she had been worrying about grocery bills and overdue notices. Thomas set the trust document aside and picked up the leather journal from the lockbox. The cover was worn, edges softened by handling. He opened it. Inside were pages of sketches, intricate mechanical designs, measurements, annotations in Ethan's precise handwriting, dates marked in the corners, time-stamped progress. He documented everything, Thomas said. Ideas, prototypes, revisions. Simone leaned closer. Some sketches were rough, others refined enough to look ready for production. Tucked between 2 pages was a folded letter. Her name was written across the outside again. She unfolded it slowly. My beautiful Simone, if you are reading this, I did not get the chance to explain. I kept secrets. I hated that I did. But I did it to protect you. She swallowed. My mother tried to pay you to leave. I found the second check she slid under our door. Brandon said I was wasting my potential, that I was jeopardizing the family legacy by choosing you. Simone's breath caught. A second check. She had only ever known about one. I started inventing things at night, selling them quietly. Companies paid. Good money. But the moment my family knew I had independent assets, they would try to control them or take them. So I built something they could not access. The trust is yours. Every cent from the patents goes there. For you. For our boys. Thomas read over her shoulder. Silent. There was a pause in the handwriting near the bottom, as if Ethan had stopped and started again. If something happens to me and my death seems sudden, do not believe it was an accident. Brandon has been getting desperate. He cornered me last week, said I was embarrassing the family, said I needed to be stopped. Simone's fingers tightened on the page. Be careful. Protect our boys. Fight for them the way you always fight for everything that matters. Forever yours. The room felt smaller suddenly. He knew, she said, her voice barely audible. He knew something was coming. Thomas nodded slowly. This letter changes things, he said. Combined with the patents and the trust, it establishes motive. If there was financial independence, if he was separating himself from the family, a sound cut him off. Gravel, crunching under tires. Both of them froze. The boys' voices, faint in another part of the house, went silent as well. Simone's head turned toward the large front windows. Through the trees, she saw it. A black SUV pulling into the drive, dust lifting behind it in a low cloud. The engine cut. For a moment, there was only wind. Then the driver's door opened. Brandon stepped out. He was not alone. Two men emerged from the back seats, broad-shouldered, professional. They scanned the property automatically. Brandon's gaze lifted toward the house, toward the windows, toward her. Even from that distance, she could see the shift in his expression. Not surprise, recognition. His mouth curved slightly. He pulled his phone from his pocket. A second later, Thomas's phone buzzed in his hand. Unknown number. Thomas answered, activating speaker without looking away from the window. Hello? Simone. Brandon's voice filled the open room. Calm. Controlled. I think we need to discuss what belongs to you and what belongs to my family. Thomas moved instinctively, stepping between Simone and the glass. This is private property, he said evenly. You're trespassing. Brandon leaned casually against the SUV. Is it? He replied. That property was purchased using Sterling and Halt funds, which makes it company property, which makes it mine. That's a lie, Thomas said. Then let the courts decide, Brandon answered lightly. In the meantime, I suggest you come outside peacefully. One of the men started toward the porch. Simone's heart slammed once against her ribs. Behind her, she heard Elijah whisper, Mama? Thomas's jaw tightened. If you set foot inside, I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Brandon said. But before you do, check your email. Thomas's phone vibrated again. He glanced down, his face drained of color. What? Simone demanded. He turned the screen toward her. Emergency restraining order granted against Simone Sterling. Effective immediately. Filed less than 20 minutes ago. That's impossible, she said. Judges move quickly for the right families. Brandon's voice said smoothly through the phone. You're currently in violation of a court order. Simone felt the weight of the lockbox at her side. The trust documents. The journal. The USB labeled the truth. Brandon's smile did not waver. And Simone, he added, almost gently, there's an emergency custody hearing tomorrow morning. My mother is petitioning for temporary custody of the boys. For their protection. The wind moved through the trees again. The fortress no longer felt silent. It felt surrounded. And whatever Ethan had prepared her for, it had just begun. For half a second, no one moved. The words emergency custody hung in the air, heavier than the threat of trespassing. Simone felt the world narrow to three sounds. Wind in the trees, her son's breathing behind her, the faint metallic click of Brandon ending the call. Thomas recovered first. We take everything, he said sharply. He snapped the laptop shut, unplugged it, and began sweeping documents into a leather folder with quick, precise movements. Simone didn't hesitate. She stuffed the trust papers back into the manila envelope, slid the journal into her bag, and clutched the USB in her fist so tightly the edges bit into her palm. The lockbox went under her arm. Footsteps creaked on the porch outside. They're coming in, Thomas said. The front door handle rattled once, then harder. Back door, he said. Simone moved. She ushered the boys toward the rear of the house, her voice calm in a way that did not match her pulse. Field trip, she whispered. Quiet game. No talking. Elijah nodded instantly, jaw set with sudden seriousness. Isaiah clutched Gabriel's sleeve. Thomas opened the back door carefully and scanned the tree line. Clear, he said. Go. Stay low. They slipped out into the late afternoon light. Pine needles cushioned their steps. The air smelled sharp and clean, painfully indifferent to what was happening. Behind them, The front door splintered open. Wood cracked. Heavy boots crossed the threshold. "They're running!" one of the men shouted. Simone didn't look back. Branches scraped against her arms as she pushed through the narrow trail Thomas had spotted earlier near the property line. The lockbox thudded against her side. The USB pressed into her skin like a reminder. Her lungs burned. Gabriel stumbled once. She grabbed him before he hit the ground. "Keep going," Thomas urged, glancing over his shoulder. They broke through the trees into a smaller service road where Thomas had parked the car earlier, out of view. "Get in," he said. Doors slammed. The engine roared to life. Gravel sprayed behind them as the sedan jerked forward just as one of Brandon's men burst through the tree line. Too late. In the rearview mirror, Simone saw Brandon standing in the driveway, phone already to his ear, not shouting, not chasing, watching. That was worse. Thomas drove fast but not recklessly, taking turns that did not follow the main road back to the highway. His jaw remained tight, eyes flicking to the mirrors every few seconds. No one spoke for nearly 20 minutes. The boys were silent in the back seat, wide-eyed but obedient. Finally, Thomas pulled into the parking lot of a grocery store off a secondary highway and cut the engine. The fluorescent lights above flickered faintly. A cart rolled somewhere in the distance. He exhaled. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. Simone realized her hands were shaking. "I don't know," she admitted. Thomas opened the laptop again, plugging in a portable hotspot from his briefcase. "We need backups," he said. "Multiple. Cloud storage, external drive, email copies." He inserted the USB. The screen populated with files, audio recordings, PDFs, video clips. "Chain of custody matters now," he murmured. "If they argue fabrication, we need timestamps, metadata, file histories." He began copying everything systematically. Simone leaned back in the seat, staring at the lockbox in her lap. "They filed a restraining order in under an hour," she said. "They likely had paperwork prepared," Thomas replied, "waiting for you to make a move." "Custody hearing tomorrow," she whispered. "Emergency petitions can be granted quickly if the court believes there's instability." "Instability," she repeated, as if grief were a crime. Her phone buzzed. "Mrs. Rivera." Simone answered immediately. "Mija." Mrs. Rivera's voice was tight. "A woman came by, said she was from Child Protective Services, wanted to check on the boys." Simone's stomach dropped. "When?" "Maybe 15 minutes ago. I didn't let her in. Told her to come back with identification and a court order." Simone closed her eyes briefly. "Did she leave?" "Yes. But she knew things. The boys' names, their ages." Thomas's gaze snapped to hers. "They're moving fast," he said under his breath. "Keep the doors locked," Simone told Mrs. Rivera. "Don't open for anyone unless I tell you." She hung up slowly. "They sent someone already." Thomas nodded grimly. "If CPS becomes involved, that strengthens their emergency custody argument." Simone looked at her sons in the back seat. Elijah met her eyes through the mirror. "Are we in trouble?" he asked quietly. "No," she said immediately. "We're just changing plans." Thomas closed the laptop lid once the files finished uploading. "We can't take them back to your apartment," he said. "Where do we go?" He hesitated only a second. "I have a colleague, immigration attorney. She maintains a safe property for clients in dangerous situations. Off the books." Simone studied him. "You trust her?" "With my career," he said. "And my license." "That's not what I asked." He held her gaze. "Yes." Simone nodded. "Call her." While he made the call, Simone pulled out her phone and opened her social media account. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She thought about Brandon's smile, about the way he had said for their protection. She opened her purse and took out the folded $20 check, smoothed it flat, took a picture, then another of the trust document header, the patent agreement, the note in Ethan's handwriting that said, "Fight like hell." Her fingers trembled as she typed, "My name is Simone Sterling. 4 months ago, my husband died. Today his family tried to take my children and silence me. Here is what they don't want you to see." She attached the images. Thomas glanced over. "Once you do this," he said carefully, "there's no going back." She knew Victoria would unleash lawyers. Brandon would escalate. The media would swarm. But silence was already costing her. She pressed post. The notification sound felt louder than it should have in the small car. Within seconds, the first like appeared. Then another. Then 3 more. Thomas's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Mr. Injure. Harrison." Victoria's voice came through, colder than before. "I'm prepared to offer you $500,000 to walk away from this case." Thomas didn't blink. "I'm not interested. It would save you years of litigation. It would cost me my integrity." A pause. "I can also offer Simone a settlement," Victoria continued. "Full custody in exchange for her silence. She signs over rights to Ethan's estate and ceases all public allegations." Simone leaned closer to the speaker. "You want my children or my silence?" she asked. "I want stability," Victoria replied. "For the family." Simone looked at the boys again, then at the lockbox, then at the phone. "You're not getting either," she said. Thomas ended the call. Outside the grocery store, evening settled slowly over the asphalt. Inside the car, notifications continued to multiply. Brandon had overreached, and now, for the first time, he was no longer the only one playing. By the time they reached the safe house, Simone's phone would not stop vibrating. Notifications stacked on top of each other, lighting up her screen in relentless bursts. Shares, messages, tags, unknown numbers. The converted firehouse sat on a quiet corner of a neighborhood she had never visited. Brick exterior, heavy red doors, now painted gray, windows high and narrow. Maria opened the door before Thomas even knocked. She was in her 50s, sleeves rolled up, flour on her hands as if she had been baking. "You're late," she said softly, then looked at Simone's face and stopped smiling. The boys were ushered upstairs to a room with 3 twin beds and glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. Gabriel was already distracted by them. Elijah lingered by the stair rail, studying Simone's expression. "We're good here?" Thomas asked Maria quietly. "For as long as you need," she replied, "but don't make it forever." Downstairs, Thomas spread documents across Maria's dining table. The laptop screen cast a cold blue light over the papers. Simone finally looked at her phone. 50,000 shares. Then 70. A news notification banner slid across the top of her screen. "Widow claims corporate conspiracy in Sterling family dispute." She tapped it. Her own photograph filled the article header, the image of the $20 check below it. The comments were no longer just numbers. They were voices. "This is sick. Protect those kids. Where are the police? Upload everything." Her inbox flooded with journalists requesting interviews, legal advocates offering advice, strangers sending prayers. Thomas glanced over. "It's spreading fast," he said. "Good," she replied. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Simone Sterling," she said cautiously. "Mrs. Sterling." Victoria's voice was precise, clipped. "You've created quite a spectacle." Simone stepped away from the table. "You tried to take my children," she said. I responded. "You posted private documents, accusations, financial information. Do you understand what that invites? Yes. A media circus, Victoria said. Speculation. Harassment. You are damaging the Sterling name. Simone almost laughed. You tried to erase me from it. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, a slight change in Victoria's tone. I'm dying, she said. The words landed without warning. Simone's grip on the phone tightened. What? Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Victoria inhaled slowly. 6 months. Perhaps less. For a moment, the storm outside the phone fell away. Simone pictured Victoria as she had seen her earlier. Perfect posture, unyielding expression. Now, the slight tremor in her hand made sense. I'm sorry you're sick, Simone said evenly. That is not why I'm calling. Of course it wasn't. I want my grandsons raised with their heritage, Victoria continued. With stability, with access to what this family has built. You mean control, Simone said. Legacy, Victoria corrected. Love does not survive death. Legacy does. Simone's gaze drifted to the staircase. She could hear faint laughter upstairs now. Gabriel's high-pitched giggle. Ethan's legacy is love, she said quietly. Not stock portfolios. Victoria exhaled. I can offer you a way out of this, she said. You withdraw the allegations. Stop speaking to the press. Sign over any claim to the estate. In exchange, I withdraw the custody petition. You receive a stipend. Stability. And Brandon? Simone asked. What about him? Does he answer for anything? A pause. Brandon has done nothing wrong, Victoria said. Simone felt something settle inside her. Cold, clear. Then we'll let the evidence decide, she replied. You're out of your depth, Victoria warned softly. The system does not bend for grief. Simone thought of the restraining order filed in minutes. The CPS knock at Mrs. Rivera's door. I'm not bending, she said. She ended the call. Thomas looked up from the laptop. Everything okay? She's dying, Simone said. He went still. And? She still wants my children. Thomas closed the laptop slowly. Then, tomorrow isn't just custody, he said. It's control. Simone nodded. Play it, she said. Thomas reopened the USB folder and clicked on the audio file they had not yet reviewed in full. Static crackled through the speakers. Then voices. Brandon's first. He won't listen, he said. He's transferring assets. Quietly. A second voice entered. Victoria's. Then make him listen. There was no hesitation in it. I've tried, Brandon said. He's determined to give everything to her and those children. A long pause. Sometimes, Victoria replied, difficult decisions have to be made for the greater good. Silence. I understand, Brandon said. The recording ended. The room felt smaller. Maria stood in the doorway, hands clasped. Madre de Dios, she whispered. Thomas was already copying the file into a new folder, labeling it clearly, time-stamping the download. We present this tomorrow, he said, but carefully. We establish authenticity first. Metadata. Chain of custody. Simone nodded. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Elijah appeared at the top of the stairs. Mama? She forced a smile. Go back to bed, baby. He didn't move. Are we safe? She crossed the room and met him halfway. Yes, she said. We are. He studied her face for a long second, then nodded and disappeared back into the room. Simone returned to the table. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Tomorrow. Show the judge the recordings. Not the police. Not yet. Trust me. The police are in Brandon's pocket. Judge Monroe isn't. Thomas read over her shoulder. Friend? He asked. I don't know, she admitted. But they've been right so far. He leaned back, considering. Tomorrow, he said, we make the system look at what it tried to ignore. Outside, sirens wailed faintly somewhere in the distance. The city continued, unaware. Inside the firehouse, the storm kept building, and for the first time, it wasn't only theirs. The courthouse steps were already crowded when Thomas's car pulled to the curb. Cameras flashed in rapid bursts, light bouncing off glass doors and polished stone. Microphones extended like spears. Simone stepped out before Thomas could circle the car. She wore black, not because it was expected, because it felt honest. Her sons were inside with Maria. Today was not for them. Mrs. Sterling, a reporter called. Are you accusing the Sterling family of murder? Simone didn't stop walking. Another voice followed. Is it true you received only $20? Thomas moved beside her, clearing a path without touching anyone. Inside, the courthouse air smelled faintly of paper and old wood. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Judge Kathleen Monroe entered the courtroom precisely at 9. Silver hair. Measured expression. No wasted movement. Be seated, she said. Simone remained standing until Thomas lightly touched her elbow. Victoria sat at the opposing table, pale but composed. Christine Whitmore, immaculate in navy silk, arranged documents with calm precision. Brandon's chair was empty. Christine rose first. Your Honor, we are seeking emergency temporary custody based on instability and reckless behavior. Miss Sterling has posted defamatory allegations, exposed private family matters publicly, and is demonstrating escalating paranoia. She tapped her tablet. Screenshots appeared on the courtroom monitor. Simone's post. The check image. Headlines. Furthermore, Christine continued, there is no verified evidence of independent assets. Ethan Sterling died with negligible funds. Thomas stood. Your Honor, we have documentation contradicting that claim. Sit, Mr. Harrison, Judge Monroe said evenly. You will have your turn. Christine resumed. There are documented financial struggles, missed payments, housing instability, emotional volatility. These children deserve structure. Judge Monroe looked directly at Simone. Miss Sterling, have you engaged in public accusations against your husband's family? Yes, Simone said. Why? It's because when I attempted to raise concerns privately, I was ignored. And murmurs rippled faintly through the gallery. Thomas rose again, this time aloud. Your Honor, the petitioner's claim that there are no assets is factually incorrect. He connected his laptop to the display. A document filled the screen. The Simone Sterling Irrevocable Trust. The valuation line clear. Judge Monroe leaned forward slightly. Nearly $2 million? She asked. Christine's lips tightened. These documents have not been authenticated. They will be, Thomas replied. We have federal patent filings, transfer records, and time-stamped bank deposits. He pulled up a second document, patent transfer agreements. Stamps visible. Dates clear. Simone watched Victoria's hands. They were trembling faintly now. Christine adjusted her posture. Even if these funds exist, they are irrelevant to the petitioner's concerns about mental stability. Stability? Simone repeated softly. Judge Monroe's gaze shifted back to her. You may speak. Simone stood slowly. I am grieving, she said. My husband died 4 months ago. Yes, I cry. Yes, I struggle. But I have fed my children every day. I have protected them every day. The people asking for custody are the same people who attempted to silence me. Christine rose sharply. Your Honor, this is where the delusion begins. Allegations without proof. Thomas's jaw tightened. We have proof. He clicked another file. The audio recording began. Static. Then Brandon's voice. He's transferring assets quietly. Victoria's voice followed. Then make him listen. The courtroom stilled. Even the air seemed to pause. Sometimes difficult decisions have to be made for the greater good. When the recording ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Judge Monroe removed her glasses slowly. "Miss Whitmore?" she asked. Christine's composure remained intact. "These recordings are unverified and taken out of context. Family disagreements do not equate to criminal conspiracy." "There is more," Thomas said. He displayed the metadata panel on the screen. File creation date. Timestamp. Device origin. "We preserved the chain of custody upon discovery," he said. "Copied immediately. Uploaded to secure storage." Judge Monroe examined the details. "Miss Sterling," she said carefully, "are you alleging that your husband's death was not accidental?" "Yes." The word did not shake. "And that members of his family were involved?" "Yes." Christine exhaled audibly. "Your Honor, this is precisely why emergency custody is necessary. These are extreme accusations born from grief." Simone turned toward Victoria. "You told him to stop Ethan," she said quietly. "You knew what that meant." Victoria's lips parted slightly. "I never intended." "Intended what?" Simone asked. The question hung between them. Judge Monroe struck the gavel once. "Order." She leaned back. "This court is not a criminal tribunal," she said. "However, these recordings raise serious concerns." Christine seized the opening. "And serious concerns about Miss Sterling's judgment in presenting them here rather than to law enforcement." "I tried law enforcement," Simone said. "They dismissed me." Judge Monroe's expression tightened. "You understand that introducing unverified criminal evidence in a custody proceeding can undermine your credibility?" Simone held her gaze. "I understand that my children are not safe with people who speak about stopping their father." Silence again. Judge Monroe closed the file in front of her. "I will take a 30-minute recess," she said. "When we return, I expect full documentation, authentication plans, and clarity on how this evidence was obtained." The gavel struck. Chairs scraped. Voices erupted in low waves as the courtroom broke into clusters of whispers. Thomas turned to Simone immediately. "You did well," he said quietly. She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on Victoria, who sat very still, staring at the empty chair beside her. The storm had reached the courtroom, but it had not yet broken. And outside those walls, the world was still watching. The courtroom filled again with a heavier silence than before. Judge Monroe returned to the bench, expression carved from restraint. "Mr. Harrison," she said, "you indicated additional evidence." Thomas did not sit. "Yes, Your Honor. We received new material during recess." Christine Whitmore rose immediately. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." "I'll decide what's irregular," Judge Monroe replied calmly. "Proceed." Thomas connected Simone's phone to the courtroom display. His movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic. Cable inserted, screen mirrored, file selected. "Before we play this," he said carefully, "I need to clarify that this is a recording from the hospital on the day Ethan Sterling died." The gallery shifted uneasily. Simone felt her pulse in her ears. The video began. Fluorescent light washed the hospital room in pale blue. Machines hummed softly. A heart monitor beeped in steady rhythm. Ethan lay in the bed, bandaged, unmoving. The timestamp in the corner read, March 10th, 3:47 p.m. The door opened. Brandon stepped inside. He closed it behind him and glanced once toward the hallway before approaching the bed. I'm sorry it came to this, he said quietly. In the courtroom, no one moved. On the screen, Brandon reached into his jacket. He withdrew a syringe. Simone's hand flew to her mouth, but she did not make a sound. Mom said it had to be done, Brandon continued. For the family. In the hospital bed, Ethan's eyelids fluttered. Brandon, he rasped. The monitor's rhythm shifted. What are you doing? What I should have done years ago, Brandon replied. He stepped closer. Ethan's hand shot out weakly, knocking the syringe to the floor. It skidded across tile. The beeping accelerated. Ethan's body convulsed slightly. I can't, he gasped. Brandon stepped back. He did not help. He watched. The monitor flatlined into a continuous tone. 5 seconds later, nurses rushed in. The video ended. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. Judge Monroe removed her glasses slowly. Where did this originate? She asked. It was sent anonymously, Thomas said. We are working to confirm its source. Christine rose. Your Honor, this is precisely the problem. Anonymous recordings. No verified chain of custody. This could be fabricated. Deepfake technology, Thomas cut in sharply. The timestamp aligns with hospital records. We are requesting subpoena authority to obtain surveillance backups and staff logs. Judge Monroe raised a hand. Enough. She looked at Simone. Miss Sterling, did you provide this to law enforcement? They dismissed prior evidence, Simone replied. I brought it here because the people who appear in that video are asking for custody of my children. Judge Monroe's gaze hardened slightly. This is a custody hearing. With respect, Thomas said. It is now more than that. Christine stepped forward. Your Honor, even if authentic, this has no immediate bearing on whether Miss Sterling is currently stable and capable. Simone felt something inside her snap. Stable? She said. You watched him die. Judge Monroe's tone sharpened. Miss Sterling, control yourself. Simone swallowed hard. I am controlled, she said quietly. That is why I am still standing. Judge Monroe leaned back in her chair. This court cannot adjudicate homicide allegations in this proceeding. The appropriate venue is criminal court. And while that takes months, Simone asked, my children are placed with them? Christine seized the moment. Your Honor, the petitioner has demonstrated escalating behavior, public accusations, media engagement, presentation of anonymous evidence in a family court setting. Judge Monroe studied Simone for a long moment. Then she spoke. I am issuing a temporary custody order for 30 days. The words dropped like stones. During this period, the children will reside with Mrs. Victoria Sterling, while this court reviews the authenticity of these materials and assesses Miss Sterling's mental state through evaluation. No, Simone whispered. Thomas stood immediately. Your Honor, this is dangerous. You have just viewed a recording. I have viewed an unverified recording, Judge Monroe interrupted. And I will not allow this courtroom to become a spectacle. Christine's shoulders relaxed slightly. Supervised visitation will be granted to Miss Sterling, the judge continued. 4 hours per week. Simone felt the room tilt. They will disappear, Thomas said urgently. The family has resources. They are not to leave the state, Judge Monroe replied firmly. Any violation will result in contempt. The gavel struck. It echoed louder than before. Proceedings adjourned. The courtroom erupted into overlapping voices. Reporters rushed toward the exit to file updates. Christine leaned toward Victoria, whispering something too low to hear. Simone remained frozen. 30 days. 30 nights. Isaiah asking why she cried. Gabriel refusing to sleep without her. Elijah trying to be brave. Thomas touched her shoulder. We appeal, he said quickly. Emergency motion. Different judge. We push the video to the district attorney immediately. Simone nodded automatically, but her mind felt hollow. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Breaking news alert. She looked down. Sterling heir, Brandon Sterling, reported missing. Last seen leaving courthouse premises. Police searching. Her blood ran cold. He's running, she said. Thomas took the phone, scanning the headline. If he disappears, that complicates everything. Complicates. The word felt too small. Outside, the courthouse steps were chaos again. Microphones, cameras, questions shouted into the air. Simone stepped through them without answering. Inside her chest, the storm was no longer building. It was breaking. And somewhere out there, the man who had stood beside her husband's hospital bed and done nothing was no longer where he was supposed to be, which meant this was not over. It was only escalating. The safe house felt smaller now. 90 minutes. That was how long before a social worker would arrive with paperwork and polite apologies and take her sons somewhere she could not follow. Simone stood in the center of Maria's living room, phone still in her hand, the news alert glowing faintly on the screen. Brandon missing. Thomas paced near the window, already drafting motions on his laptop. Words stacking faster than breath. We file emergency reconsideration, he said. Attach the video. Attach the audio. Simone nodded, but the nod felt hollow. Upstairs, Elijah was telling Gabriel a story. Something about superheroes who pretended to lose before they won. Her chest tightened. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. For a second, she thought it might be another reporter. She answered anyway. Hello? Simone. A woman's voice. Steady. Controlled. You don't know me, but I've been helping you. Simone went very still. The messages, the woman continued. The warning about showing the recordings to the judge first. The hospital footage. Thomas stopped pacing. Put it on speaker, he mouthed. Simone tapped the screen. Who are you? She asked. My name is Vanessa Sterling. Silence fell so completely, it felt engineered. Brandon's wife. I installed the cameras in Ethan's hospital room, Vanessa said, 3 days before he died. He asked me to. Simone's breath caught. Why? She whispered. Because he knew Brandon would come. Thomas stepped closer to the phone. Where are you? He demanded. On my way to the district attorney's office, Vanessa replied. With everything else. Everything? Simone asked. 12 years of financial transfers, off-the-books payments, shell accounts, audio files you haven't seen yet. Simone felt something shift in her chest, not relief. Momentum. Why now? She asked. A pause. Because Brandon ran, Vanessa said. And desperate men make mistakes. And you? Simone pressed. You stood beside him. I know. There was no defensiveness in Vanessa's tone. Only fatigue. I laughed at you once, she said quietly. I won't do it again. Thomas glanced at the clock. Social worker arrives in under an hour. He said, I know, Vanessa replied. Stall her. 2 hours. That's all I need. Simone's pulse quickened. 2 hours, she repeated. If I secure the arrest warrants before custody transfers, the order collapses. Vanessa said, Victoria will be taken in for conspiracy. Brandon will face charges the moment he surfaces. You're sure? Thomas asked. I'm certain. The line went silent. Simone stared at the phone for a long second. Upstairs, footsteps moved. Elijah appeared at the top of the stairs. Are they coming? He asked quietly. Simone forced her voice steady. Not yet. A knock sounded at the door. Precise, professional. Thomas and Simone exchanged a look. Maria opened it. A woman in her mid-30s stood on the porch holding a clipboard. "Jessica Chun," she said gently. "Child Protective Services." Simone stepped forward before Maria could speak. "Miss Chun," she said, "I need 2 hours." Jessica's expression was practiced sympathy. "I understand this is difficult," she said, "but I have a court order." Thomas approached, laptop already open. "5 minutes," he said. "Just watch something." Jessica hesitated. "I'm not here to review evidence," she said. "You're here to ensure child safety," Simone replied, "and what you're about to do affects that." Something in her tone made Jessica pause. "5 minutes," she agreed. They moved into the kitchen. Thomas connected the laptop. The hospital video played first. Jessica's composure faltered halfway through. "My God," she whispered. Thomas followed with the audio recording. Then the bank transfer image Vanessa had just texted. 2 transfers, same amount, 3 days apart. Victoria to Brandon. Brandon to a known fixer. "Timestamps?" Jessica asked. Thomas rotated the screen, pointing. "Verified through Federal Registry. Cross-referenced." Jessica leaned back slowly. "This changes things," she said. "Yes," Simone replied. "It does." Jessica checked her watch. "I can request a delay for review," she said carefully. "But if nothing happens—" "2 hours," Simone said. Jessica stepped outside to make the call. Simone returned to the living room. The boys were sitting quietly on the couch. Isaiah looked up. "Are we going?" he asked. Simone knelt in front of them. "Not yet." Elijah studied her face. "You're fighting," he said. "Yes," she answered. Gabriel reached out and touched her cheek. "Don't lose." The door opened again. Jessica re-entered. "I've secured a 2-hour hold," she said. "After that, I proceed." Simone nodded. Minutes stretched. Thomas refreshed news feeds repeatedly. No update. No rest. Her phone buzzed again. "Vanessa." One line. He turned himself in. Simone's heart stopped. "What?" Thomas demanded. She handed him the phone. Breaking alert followed seconds later. "Brandon Sterling has surrendered to authorities, admitting involvement in his brother's death." Thomas let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Simone felt her knees weaken. Another buzz. "Warrants issued for Victoria Sterling. Charges pending." Jessica stared at the screen. "Well," she said softly, "that changes the custody calculus." Thomas looked at her sharply. "It does." Jessica nodded once. "I'll be filing an amended report." She gathered her clipboard and stepped toward the door. "I'm glad you were right," she said before leaving. When the door closed, the house felt different. The air lighter. Upstairs, a window rattled faintly in the wind. Thomas's phone rang. He answered. "Yes," he said. "Understood." He ended the call and looked at Simone. "Emergency hearing in an hour," he said. "Custody order likely reversed." Simone exhaled slowly. Upstairs, Gabriel began laughing at something Isaiah said. Elijah ran down the stairs. "Why are you smiling?" he asked. Simone pulled him into her arms. "Because sometimes," she said softly, "the truth catches up." Outside, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Not chasing her, chasing someone else. For the first time since the storm began, Simone felt the ground steady beneath her feet. The turn had come, and this time it was not against her. The courtroom felt different the second time, quieter. Not because fewer people were watching, because the tension had shifted direction. Simone stood beside Thomas as Judge Monroe took her seat once more. This time, there were no raised voices from the opposing table, no confident legal posture, no calm, polished narrative about instability. Victoria's chair was empty. Judge Monroe adjusted the papers in front of her and looked directly at Simone. "I have reviewed the confession entered this morning," she said, "and the materials submitted to the district attorney's office." Her voice was steady, but no longer distant. "Brandon Sterling is in custody. An arrest warrant has been issued for Victoria Sterling on charges of conspiracy to commit murder." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Simone did not move. "The temporary custody order issued earlier today is hereby vacated," Judge Monroe continued. "Full custodial rights are restored to Simone Sterling, effective immediately." Thomas's hand tightened briefly on the back of the chair in front of him. Judge Monroe met Simone's eyes. "This court failed to account for the broader context of your allegations. For that, I offer my apology." Simone swallowed. "Thank you, Your Honor." The gavel fell. This time, the sound did not feel like a weapon. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered again, but the energy had changed. Questions were sharper now, directed toward accountability rather than spectacle. Simone did not rush. She walked down the steps slowly, head high, her son's hands wrapped around hers. "Mrs. Sterling," someone called, "do you feel vindicated?" She paused. The late afternoon sun caught the emerald ring on her finger. "It feels," she said quietly, "like my husband can finally rest." Cameras flashed. She did not stay for more. 6 months later, autumn settled gently over the estate. The trees that had once felt like a shield now looked like witnesses. Inside the workshop behind the house, sunlight streamed through newly installed windows. Dust floated in warm beams of light. Simone stood at the center of the space, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back. The walls were lined with pegboards. Tools hung neatly in place. Small workbenches filled the room, each one built to child height. 8 children moved carefully between tables, sanding wood, measuring carefully, learning how to use their hands to shape something solid. The Ethan Sterling Memorial Workshop was painted in simple letters above the doorway. Not ornate, not grand, intentional. Elijah crouched over a block of wood, carving slowly with focused precision. Isaiah sanded the edge of a small shelf, tongue caught between his teeth. Gabriel painted a wooden truck bright blue, splattering more paint on himself than the project. "Is this right?" Isaiah asked, holding up the smoothed edge. Simone stepped beside him, running her fingers lightly over the surface. "Feel that?" she said. "Smooth. Even. You did that." He grinned. A girl named Aisha approached cautiously, holding a half-finished birdhouse. "Miss Sterling? The roof won't stay." Simone knelt beside her. "Angle matters," she said, guiding her hands. "Let the rain slide off." Aisha adjusted the piece. It fit. The small victory lit her face. Thomas arrived just before noon, carrying paper bags that smelled of warm bread and deli meat. He was no longer just her lawyer. He had become something steadier, present, reliable. Not a replacement, just a witness. They ate lunch on the porch, while the children ran through the tall grass beyond the yard. "Trial starts next week," Thomas said quietly. Simone nodded. She did not ask how long it would take. She did not ask whether Victoria would see the inside of a cell or a hospital room first. Justice was moving. That was enough. Later that evening, when the children had gone home and the sky had turned amber, Simone gathered her boys in the living room. "Letter night," she said. They settled close. She unfolded one of Ethan's letters from the journal she had preserved carefully. "Dear Elijah, Isaiah, and Gabriel, I hope you build things. Not just wood and metal. Build courage. Build kindness. Build a life loud enough that no one can tell you that you are small." Simone's voice did not waver. Your mama is stronger than she thinks. One day, you'll see that. When she finished, Elijah leaned against her shoulder. We saw it, he said. Isaiah nodded. You fought. Gabriel looked up. And you won. Simone smiled softly. Not everything, she said, but enough. Later, when the house was quiet and the boys were asleep, she stepped into the workshop alone. She picked up a small block of wood and a thin chisel. The rhythm came back to her slowly. The scrape of blade against grain, the steady patience of shaping something fragile into something intentional. Hours passed without her noticing. When she finished, she held up the piece in the lamplight, a small wooden heart, split cleanly down the center, bound together with fine strands of gold wire. Broken, repaired, stronger for the fracture. She set it on the shelf beside Ethan's photograph. The wind moved softly through the trees outside. The house did not feel like a fortress anymore. It felt like home. Simone touched the emerald ring once, then turned off the workshop light. In the dark, the estate stood quiet and steady. Love built this. Power could not burn it down.